according to a 2018 study. Americans check their phones an average of 76 times a day for a cumulative 2.5 hours. And that statistic was from 5 years ago. So now, post-pandemic, really, who knows? The login rate may be even higher. And isn't it funny that the solution for technology often seems to be, well, more technology, as is evident from the more than, 1,000 apps to help us disconnect from dependence on our phones. This past week, I learned about the availability of 2 new apps, which seem to be mirror images of each other. One is called Morning, co-authored by an esteemed HUC professor, Rabbi Lisa Grant, and cantor Lisa B. Siegel. Based on Rabbi Grant's own experience of loss, she crafted an interactive app which consolidates the wisdom of our ancestors coupled with the knowledge that she gleaned during her own journey, her journey of loss, all to help guide modern mourners who would be more inclined to use an app than a prayer book. An app can help mark the passage of time and the uneven pattern of grief, its ebb and flow, all without judgment. And in addition, users can find an online community of people who understand and can help support each other. And think of how handy it would be to be able to have the Kaddish on your phone right in your pocket, so that wherever you may be, you can still observe that beautiful ritual of honoring God's goodness. With music and poetry woven throughout, this app addresses themes that are common to loss, pain, brokenness, sadness, comfort, resilience, acceptance, and finally, gratitude. Even gratitude. So now let me tell you about the other app. Its title says it all. It's called We Croak. I know. It functions like this. 5 times a day at random times, this app pings, and it also shares a quote. It's meant to remind the user that time, meaning one's time on earth, is limited. A Bhutanese tradition, or so says the app, suggests that reflecting on death 5 times a day brings happiness. A little unsettling, maybe even creepy, but that is precisely its point. We never know how much time we have. And because the random pings are always a surprise, they're quite effective. So now let's frame it slightly differently so you can open your heart to the idea. Suppose we apply it to a time when you're on vacation. So many have a moment when they suddenly realize that their vacation is about to come to an end, and there is still so much that they want to try and do and eat and see. So is there anyone who doesn't try to cram as much enjoyment into the remaining time as possible? To see those sights, enjoy those meals, cherish those sunsets, and share the singular experience of a place and time before we return to the routine of our lives. So that is the purpose of the app. A ping, which could well stand in for the shofar, to remind us to wake up to what is important and precious and wonderful in our lives. We Croak may be the latest way to create mindfulness about the precious, irretrievable time we heedlessly squander, but there is a long history of such knowledge in Jewish tradition. A 19th century rabbi, Simcha Zissel Ziv, taught, remembering death in the proper way can bring a person to the ultimate joy. And more recently, psychotherapist Irvin Yalom wrote in his book, Love's Executioner, there is a long tradition that teaches us that full awareness of death ripens our wisdom and enriches our life. Though the physicality of death destroys us, the idea of death may save us. But first, we need the courage to bear it. Krista Tippett, host of the On Being Project, shared this story. My childhood best friend read Charlotte's Web over and over again as a kid. She would read the last page, turn the book over, and begin again. A few years ago, I asked her why. What was it that made you read and reread that book, I asked her. Did you think that if you read it again, that things would turn out differently, better, that Charlotte wouldn't die? No, she said, it wasn't that. I kept reading it not because I wanted it to turn out differently or thought it would turn out differently, but because I knew for a fact that it wasn't going to turn out differently. I knew that a terrible thing was going to happen, and I also knew it was going to be okay. I thought I couldn't bear it, but then when I read it again and again, it was all so beautiful, and I found out that I could bear it. That was what the story told me. That was what I needed to hear, that I could bear it somehow. We come together for Yizkor because no matter how we carry our loved one's memory every other day, today, in this hour, we bear it together, united by the sad realization that loss is not unique to us. We are strengthened by each other as we find our way through the valley of the shadow. That valley was never meant to be a permanent address, a place where we continue to dwell, but a passage to the other side. There's a famous parable of a man who is lost in the forest. He calls out to see if there is anyone nearby, someone who can help him find his way through. And to his surprise, he receives an answer. I'm lost, the first person said. Do you know the way out? And the second one answered, I am lost too, but we can find our way together. In the quiet of this sacred space, though we are in different stages of loss, we are nevertheless finding our way together, finding our way through the valley, out of the forest, and back to community while carrying our precious memories along. Each cherished memory is a reflection of lives shared and intertwined. In this moment, they are markers showing us the way through loss and back to the pleasures we once enjoyed together. As we emerge, we find that there are moments in the day which aren't entirely awful, pockets of pleasure, moments of simple quiet that are not entirely laced with loss. And as Rabbi Grant would remind us, there are times we even feel grateful. That emotion may be the ultimate destination, but there is no way to get from here to there except by going through, as the Israelites did at the shores of the sea. They had to move forward. I want to share the wisdom of Sarah Wildman, an editor in the opinion section of the New York Times. Over the last several years, you may have read the stories she posted about her daughter Orly's struggle with cancer. This spring, Orly died. And recently, Wildman shared some thoughts which are both observations and lessons for all who have been bereaved. In August, Wildman acknowledged, "We are learning how to live now. We often stumble." Like many families after loss, they decided a change of scenery and a visit with dear friends, these friends happened to live abroad, would take them from the routine from which Orly's absence would be so painfully felt, while at the same time helping them reorient themselves as they grieved. While abroad, Orly's younger sister, Hannah, celebrated her birthday, which Sarah had tried to fill with small joys. As the day came to an end, despite the festivities, Hannah felt her sorrow deeply and remarked to her mother, "Life is terrible." Her mother said, "I know it is. I feel like that too, all the time. But look around you," she said to her daughter. "We are in Paris. It's 10:30 at night, and the world is filled with people. This street, these buildings are exquisite. The light is soft. It's beautiful here, and there's a breeze." And here is Wildman's great insight when she said to her daughter, "The pain is always there for us. It will be waiting at the apartment when we return tonight. It will be lying next to us in bed, or come to us when we are awake. We will always have it. But we have to let this moment of beauty in too. That will be the work of all the rest of our days, to hold this pain and this beauty side by side, without letting the one crush or crowd out the other. We have to let this beauty in too. This is the blessing, the challenge, the purpose of Yizkor, to find the balance between the pain we always carry and the many other wonderful things that can and will fill our lives. It is this, just this. This is what Rabbi Grant was pointing to when she noted that gratitude can be a destination. And though we mourn and grieve for all we have lost, we have to let the beauty in too. When we hear the shofar sound at last, may it remind us to live each day as fully as if it was our last, and to cherish life's beauty as best as we can.